Thank you, Jill. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, please, first of all, for joining us this afternoon, taking the time. It means so much to both the Millcraft and the Sappi teams that you would find the time to be able to do and join us. This is such an important topic right now, and I was thrilled to be asked to do this because I think it's so very, very timely. You know, obviously, we've got a lot to talk about. As many of you have heard me say before, I'm going to be talking like a ferret on espresso, okay? There's a lot of data. There are a lot of factoids. You're going to see lots of things, and I'm going to move quickly in the fact that I'll leave the screen on long enough for you to read the pertinent. We will find ways of making sure that you have access to this information, because I think that this is exactly the time for us to be able to take direct mail very, very seriously. I think it's one of those topics where at a time when we are still, I don't want to use the term fighting, but it's still trying to convince the decision and policymakers the importance of print and why print, particularly in an omni-channel world, having print. And when we say the term direct mail, you can also think about the term direct marketing, because direct mail is virtually anything that's going to come through your mailbox. So it's magazines, it's catalogs, it's direct mail, collateral, it is anything that companies, corporations will want to send to you. And quite frankly, you know, so often I get asked the question, you know, is direct mail still relevant? And I have to laugh. You're going to see some statistics where I think it really does prove this. And let me go back. So we wanted to, Sappi, this is actually our third publication in my tenure with Sappi, that we wanted to devote a publication and a presentation to direct mail. Of course, we put a piece out and then a presentation that my colleagues and I tour throughout North America. Obviously, I have to make some changes, modifications when I go up into Canada, but I have been working with Canada Post for many, many years, and have worked very closely with the USPS. This is, in fact, my third Postmaster General that I'll be working with. And so the way that this started was we wanted to be able to create a publication that had sort of the legacy information about direct mail. And I have to be very honest, so much of this has remained the same. People sincerely get master's and doctoral degrees in communication, parenthetically focused on direct mail and all its different avenues and aspects. In this regard, we wanted to turn to one of our dearest colleagues and one of my best friends, Trish Witkowski, from Fold Factory. And, oh, come on. I can't believe it. Jeez. I am so sorry, I hate when this happens. I lost my.
It happens at every meetup, Danielle. We have one glitch.
Everything was working just fine, and then all of a sudden, it stopped. There we go. Okay, let's go back. So, Trish Witkowski, and if you're not familiar with Trish, please, I cannot invite you more strongly and warmly to go to her site, foldfactory.com. Every week, she puts on a what's called the 60-second super cool fold of the week. And it focuses on direct mail. And the beauty of it is she has tentacles everywhere. I say that affectionately. And she has scouts, and she looks for some of the very finest pieces. Some of them, and she'll be very honest, some of them are simple, short mailings done digitally or variable data. Some of it are very large drops in the hundreds of thousands. But if you've not seen her videos before, this is what it looks like.
Thanks for watching. Well, sometimes a really special event just requires a really special invitation. This is for Shaffer Advertising and my friends at Structural Graphics in Essex, Connecticut. It's an amazing 30th anniversary event for the Fort Worth Zoo called the Fort Worth Zoo Ball. And they do it every year. It's a fundraiser. Fort Worth Zoo is a privately owned organization and they're not for profit. And so they do this special event every year. But this is the 30th anniversary. And so they did this just incredible piece. So this is the outer envelope. Beautiful. And then got a lining. Very nice. And then the piece on the inside has a little tab in the cover. It says Zoo Ball. There's a little tab closing the cover. And so you open it like this. And then you open it like this. Unbelievable. It says, celebrate 30 years of Zoo Ball at the Flamingo, benefiting the Fort Worth Zoo.
So you get the idea. She finds pieces and displays them, highlights them. And the beauty of the way that she does this is she always asks for two pieces. One that she will unfold as you saw here and give you the full effect. And secondly, she'll take a piece and then she'll take it apart physically. And then she'll show you the glue tabs where it folds. She'll explain how it was done. She'll tell you this is done on a machine or this had to be hand done. But quite frankly, if you are a designer, if you're a print production manager, a media strategist, this is probably, in my opinion, one of the finest educations that you can get on direct mail and in all its different ways. And the videos are quite short. I mean, they're typically about at most 2 minutes. So you could literally watch, 5, 6, 7, 8 in like 10, 15 minutes and get this extraordinary education. I highly recommend her videos, particularly for people who are new to the industry. And if you want ideas, again, most of you have heard me say this before, but young designers borrow, veteran designers steal. And these are ideas that are so worth seeing and trying to figure out, how do I incorporate it? Sometimes it's as simple as, an iron cross or a staggered fold, but done in extraordinarily beautiful ways. And it doesn't have to be expensive. It can, in fact, be just a very clever or beautiful fold that allows us as a designer to be able to control the reveal of the information. So we asked Trish to assist us and wrote this book. It's still available, by the way. If you want a copy, contact one of your Sappi sales executives, or you can go to Sappi Pop, P-O-P, Power of Print, Power of Packaging, Power of Paper, .com, or Sappi Samples, plural.com, and still get a copy of it. So wonderful. And we really talked about a lot of the different aspects of direct mail, a lot of facts, again, going back to some of the legacy information that's still extraordinarily relevant, and you're going to hear me reference this quite a bit. But the first thing that we wanted to really talk about was, why mail? I mean, we all have 5 devices, 3 of them are on at any given time. I have access to content, but the truth of it is, it really begs that larger question, is content just content? Quite honestly. And one of the things I want to be able to talk about today is the fact that, no, it's not. How we read is as important as what we read. And the value that the physical pieces that we get is so exceptionally important and powerful. And it certainly plays directly into the hands of designers in terms of giving us, the full arsenal of color, paper, font, folding, print techniques, all the different things. And one of the things I want you to see is, again, I'm going to give you a lot of these charts and stuff. I'm going to move quickly through it, but I wanted you to see this, the idea that mail is still an extraordinarily important and well-received medium. More important as you go down the list of a lot of different options. Now, you know, you may remember that Sappi did a wonderful piece called Print And. It was a deep dive market research program, ended up being about 18 months. And what we were trying to find was the value of print. Is it still relevant? And more importantly, is it still relevant with younger demographics? And unequivocally, the answer was yes, it is. And the fact that what we came to realize was that it really does matter. Paper sticks. Direct mail, again, has got that visible, tangible, it touches all of our senses. And more importantly, and particularly now during this quarantine, that idea of people really do enjoy going to their mailboxes. They love being able to get out, take a walk, get out of their apartment, but more importantly, they read it right away. 80% of people read their mail immediately and keep it. Here's the interesting thing. You know, you're going to hear me say this a multiplicity of times, but I want to really emphasize this. And this was a theory that was devised, honestly, 40 years ago. It has to be relevant and it has to be timely. You have to do your due diligence and your homework. Now, that's changed a great deal, of course, when we talk about things like big data. It's not just about the concept of being able to target. It's the idea of being able to sub-target, to get into even smaller, very focused groups. And quite frankly, when we talk about technology and particularly print technology, one of the most disruptive technologies, of course, was variable data printing, digital printing. Our ability to do extremely short runs to very targeted audiences, be able to change copy, imagery. Suddenly it became so much more engaging. So again, you're going to see a lot of facts, and down at the bottom, I always try to make sure that you have the sources of these. But as you can read, you know, 66% of direct mail is open and 82% of direct mail is read at least for a minute or so. By the way, quick sidebar, I want to thank my colleague, Molly Ungs from Sappi, who has tirelessly continued doing research for us to be able to keep this very, very updated. And keep in mind one thing, sometimes you'll see a statistic like 2017 and you'll think, well, boy, I thought it's 3 years ago. First of all, please understand the statistics, the research was done in many cases in 2017. It takes at least a year sometimes to be able to analyze the amount of data that we get and be able then to release it. So I really like this. When I'm asked about direct mail, particularly at the executive levels, I use the statistic of the fact that we are taken by all of this new technology. It's sort of the shiny object, it's swirl kind of thing. But if you look, particularly here, going down the line, direct mail has in fact increased its volume to about 3 to 3.5% annually, even during some of the worst times. And we'll talk about that because here's a perfect example. We are in a truly anomaly of times. And this is a perfect time for us to focus on the fact that people are at home. I hate using the term a captive audience, but you understand what I mean. People are home, and this is a perfect time if we want to reach them and know that we will reach them. Direct mail is that perfect way of being able to do it. More importantly, and we're going to talk about the difference between response rates and conversion rates. We can get very, very high response rates if we create a piece that is visually captivating, it's engaging, we use special effects, particularly with the younger demographics. They just love soft touch and foil stamps and beautiful inks and all the different things that we can do now, not just on offset, but also digitally, whether it's a Scodix or it's an HP or MGI, we have all these marvelous machines that are able to give us some extraordinary effects. We can also, as you can see down at the bottom, personalize. We can actually use software programs, not just to change the name on the address, but literally build the name into the physical design of the piece. So that's one part of where we talk about response rates, where you will always have to, and again, one of the great maxims and theories of direct mail, have to have a call to action. What are you asking the recipient to do? Are you asking to fill out a card and put it back in the mail? Are you asking them, are you driving traffic to a brick and mortar? Are you asking them to go to a website? And I would share with you one of the aspects as a consultant I always talk about is print is the perfect springboard to get people to a website, a microsite, a storefront, the links, and particularly with the advent of technology like augmented reality or even QR codes, we can get the reader of a physical piece seamlessly to a microsite or a website, or we can get them online, which has really expanded the attention span of the pieces and the interest levels of the pieces, and it has dramatically increased response rates. We're getting better and better at it as we better understand and integrate the tools that we have available to us. Response rates are one thing, but the truth of it is that it is the conversion rates, the people who respond who end up purchasing. That's really what the C-suite, the executive suite, the executives are looking for. And what I'll show you in a few moments is, amazingly, the return on investment for direct mail has not only stayed extremely high as for every dollar that you invest, as high as $13 in conversion rate, but it has continued to grow the better we get at it. And I think that this becomes very, very important. Very quickly, you've heard me talk about the younger demographics. Through the market research, what we came to realize is that, as you can read, 18 to 21-year-old response rates have doubled. And they're more likely, in fact, to take action, to go to that brick and mortar. In fact, quick sidebar, we all have read stories of large department stores, large brick and mortars, who chose not to continue their direct mail campaigns and suffered horribly. And when we say horribly, hundreds of millions and in some cases billions of dollars, or completely lost that traffic to their brick and mortar or their response rates. This is incredibly important for us to be able to integrate as we are talking to our clients or as we're talking to our superiors about the importance. Technology has made our lives much easier, but the figures show that around 97% of people don't click on links which they get in emails, whereas 98% of people check their direct mail daily. And this includes millennials. I think this is really worth being able to talk about. I like the second point here, and this is something we talk about quite a bit. Online marketing is passive. What I want us to appreciate, because of the volume of content, the tsunami of content that we're getting barraged with, it turns us into spectators. We look, we see, and unless it's really engaging, unless it's relevant and timely, we go on to the next. And there is a fact that is shared that we read our emails with our finger over the delete button. And believe me, that is a hair trigger kind of response, being delete, 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 delete. Direct mail is active. It actually makes us an active participant, particularly, and this is what Trish tried to explain, and we did a piece, our standard number 4 on folding, where we talked about the fact that anytime we use folds, you turn the recipient into an active participant. They have to, in fact, open things up in order to be able to get the entire message. That activity, that engagement of unfolding increases the level of ownership that the recipient has to the piece itself. They're less likely to just throw it away. If it's well done and it's clever, they'll hold on to it. If it's really beautiful printing, they'll hold on to it. So the idea that it increases the ROI for both retention and acquisition becomes a very, very important fact. We talked about this, and there are countless ways of being able to first of all, calculate ROI, to be able to figure out, what your response rates and your conversion rates are. That's another conversation. There are a lot of logistics involved in direct mail, and you can really get to the nitty gritty here if you want. But we still, although people think that it is primarily boomers and the older Gen X's that like the direct mail, quite frankly, if you have a favorite store, if you have a favorite brand, if you have a company that you have done business with or are thinking about doing business with, this is an extremely important way for them to stay in front. The biggest challenge we have right now, because of the tsunami of content, the biggest challenge we have, in fact, is the staying top of mind. It is making sure that you are in front of the client, that there is brand recognition. They know who you are, they know what you do, they know what your service or products are, so that when the purchasing decision comes up, you are top of mind. And they'll go, oh yeah, that's great. This is or I waited for this coupon, or I waited for this discount, or I've waited for the stores to open back up. These are incredibly important, relevant topics to people that we should be able to trigger. So, again, lots of information. Some of these slides I'll let you read and then I'll just move on. But the second point I think is so important, particularly to media strategists. By synchronizing a direct mail campaign with a cloud marketing or CRM system, direct mail facilitates a connection with online customers and prospects. I think this becomes very, very important. So again, there's so many different ways that we want to be able to have. These are the kinds of statistics and facts that I want you to be able to have access to, so that when you're sitting and you are creating a sales and marketing strategy, you can pull these tidbits up and be able to build them into your own presentation, whether it's to a client or whether it is to be able to support your concept of using direct mail to a superior policymaker or decision maker. So again, response by media, I think this gives us a very, very good idea. And keep in mind, when you see social media and you see this 0.4%, keep in mind that the volume, the astronomical volume of social media keeps that percentage low. The one thing I always try to remind folks is print costs money. We know that. And the beauty of print, most importantly, is the fact that it has checks and balances. You know, if you write copy, you're going to have a copy editor, or if you work for a corporation, it's going to go through legal. You have a check and balance. If you do a design, it has to be approved by a committee, unfortunately, sometimes, but the truth, or by an art director or creative director and the client. If you create a file, it has to be approved by a production manager. You send it to the printer and they have to make sure that it actually runs. The fact of it is the checks and balance that keeps things very valid. Anybody, anywhere can put anything online. There are no filters. So the fact of it is, and I say this respectfully, but it could be done by an amateur in a garage or a bedroom, anybody who's got a computer and some software. It doesn't mean that it has necessarily been checked and validated. We want to make sure, but I wanted you to have that understanding when we look at the low number on social media. It becomes very, very important. I like this this statistic very quickly. The 70% of people say that direct mail feels more personal. It does, particularly when we target our audiences, and again, that we're making sure that it's the right message to the right person at the right time. It's an easy thing to say. It's a very difficult and complex thing to actualize. And you have to make sure that your information is good, your lists are clean, that you are sending the right message to the right person. Because here's the interesting thing, that you send the wrong message to the person, it will cost you between 7 to 11 times more to get their trust back. This comes from Peppers and Rogers. If you're not familiar with Peppers and Rogers, absolutely, I'll give you their email site at the end. But Don Peppers wrote the book on one-to-one marketing in 1993, and his partner, Martha Rogers, wrote a book a year later called Intimacy Selling. If I'm going to try to do one-to-one marketing where I'm speaking to you or I'm making you feel as if I'm speaking to you personally, I have to know who you are. I have to know what's relevant to you. It may be that I have access to your shopping history or the magazines that you subscribe to, or some inquiries that you have made. But the fact is, 48% of people retain direct mail for future use. This is particularly important. You'll see that we talk about affluent households quite a bit, and it's a mixed bag. First of all, obviously, affluent households have got disposable income that everybody wants. The flip side of the coin, and we're certainly feeling this particularly now during the pandemic, it begs a very large and important question. How do you reach the underserved? How do you get information to people at a time when they need it most? And quite frankly, very sincerely, and I say this from in fact, personal experience, direct mail allows us, in fact, to get messages as simple as a postcard. We'll be doing checks here, or you can get your testing here, or go to this church, or go to this hospital, whatever. So 66%, as you can read, open, 82% read, 56% respond. And the beauty of this is, of that 56% that respond, as high as 62%, in fact, purchase. These are huge numbers. You'll notice this came out in 2018. This is a great slide to be able to use in it. We also talk about the physicality and how different it is. And most of you should be, hopefully, are aware of the deep research that we did in the neuroscience of touch. This is the book that we produced. We printed it twice. Unfortunately, we're not going to be printing it a third time, though please know that we have, in fact, uploaded the book and all the videos contained within the book. Yes, there are videos in the book. That silver border that you see, in fact, at the time that it was available, if you used the app Layer, which is unfortunately no longer available, we are replacing it with another soon, you would be able to take your phone and hold it over your phone, hold it over the book, so that you could see that border, that silver border, tap your phone, and it would launch you immediately to a video. We had 6 videos of Dr. David Eagleman, one of the very top neuroscientists in North America, as well as 3 case studies that each had a video as well. So we uploaded all of the research, and we uploaded all 9 videos to sappipop.com, P-O-P again, sappipop.com, and you can go right to it. and you don't need any app or anything else. The videos are right there and you can watch them. But the research that we've been doing on the importance of touch really validates why print. What's the value? And there's a conversation that we have, and this has been the continued research that we have been doing and will continue to do, about the importance of how we read is as important as what we read. In fact, the dichotomy we talk about now, and neuroscientists talk about, is the reading brain versus the digital brain. And one of the best slides I have, probably one of the most important slides that I can share with you, came from this extraordinary research done by one of the top neuroscientists also in North America, named Dr. Marianne Wolf. She is the head of the neuroscientific lab and the chair of the neuroscientific department at Tufts University. She did an experiment using her grad students and her world-class lab at Tufts on a concept that she posited 20 years ago. It took her 10 years to prove, called bilateral literacy. Many of you have seen me present this before, so I'll do this quickly, but I think this is one of the most important conversations that we have, particularly for those folks who are not familiar with this research. But what Dr. Marianne Wolf did is she posited this concept of bilateral literacy. She brought in a large control of volunteers. She used fMRI scanners, brain scanners, so sort of the shower cap with all the wires, but she also used skin tags. So heart rate, blood pressure, perspiration, and she monitored that through all of her volunteers. And what she said, and she took this 10 years worth of research and she published it in a book called Proust and the Squid. And what she basically came to the conclusion was, if I give you something in print, ink on paper to read, the first thing that's going to happen, your heart rate is going to slow down. Your blood pressure is going to lower. You slow down because you are preparing yourself to read all the words that are printed. You're going to read for content and context and nuance. You're going to seek the narrative of the story. We love stories. As a species, we love narratives, and stories help us to remember content better. Because we have slowed down, the beauty of it is we read more in depth. And because we read more in depth, we have a much, much better understanding of the content. And in turn, we have a longer mnemonic retention. We remember what we read longer. This is incredibly important, particularly if you're trying to get information out to prospects, to clients, to anyone that you want to have that personal relationship with. And because we slow down and we have a better understanding of the content, we have a better appreciation of the content. And in turn, we have a higher valuation of the content and its authorship. And the key was this: we also end up having a higher valuation of the brand. In fact, interestingly enough, in the neuroscientific studies done by Dr. Eagleman for Sappi, they found out that when they brought the volunteers back over a period of time, they had a much better retention of the content, and they remembered the name of the brand. 1 out of 3 people remembered the name specifically. And what the content was. This is incredibly important, particularly from a marketing perspective. If I'm going to spend the money and send things out, whether it's a catalog or it's a brochure or it's a piece of direct mail, I want to make sure that I'm getting my money's worth as a marketer. And I want particularly the recipient to get the value of why I sent it. This was the aha moment. And truly, this really changed my perspective as an academic and as a marketer. What Dr. Wolf found out was, using all these skin tags, plus the research that she did at Tufts, that because of this tsunami of content that we know awaits us anytime we open up any kind of digital device. It could be your desktop, your laptop, your phone, your iPad, whatever it is, your tablet. We know that there's this extraordinary amount of content awaiting us, and it makes us anxious, incredibly anxious, because we want to get through it. You know that when you turn on your phone, as an example, you know that there are countless emails, and there are tweets and Facebook posts and LinkedIn and YouTube and Instagram and Snapchat, and it makes us anxious. And what has happened, and this is the key, in the last 20 to 25 years, depending on your age, what Dr. Wolf discovered, was that we in fact have created a secondary synaptical cortex, a different pathway for those electrical impulses to go through our mail. And the minute we reach for our device in a nanosecond, believe me, it is completely subliminal. You have no choice. In order to be able to get through this volume of content, the first thing that happens is we have taught ourselves to read a lot faster. But the way that we read a lot faster is that we immediately go into the skim mode. When we talk about the digital reader is a skimmer. We seek the keywords. We're looking for highlighted copy. And most importantly, we are looking for visual imagery and video links. Because of our immense fondness for video, and we'll talk about this more in a second, anytime we can give online a video link that shows a short video that substantiates and validates what the copy has said, we have a better chance of it sticking. But the problem is, when we are skimming, we're reading for speed. So it's an extraordinarily low retention rate, and it's a much, much lower understanding of the content. We will most likely remember what we see in a video digitally rather than what we read. Now, very honestly, there is a huge difference between the content that we send business to consumer, which is going to be skimmed very quickly, as opposed to business reading, where we've all had to stop and learn to read emails carefully, or read content carefully, or we do get articles that are important to us. So we have had to train ourselves not to skim. But on a normal basis, the fact is there is a huge dichotomy between the reading brain and the digital brain. We actually have a second webinar that talks specifically about that, and is a marvelous YouTube video from Dr. Marianne Wolf. By the way, if you are interested, go to YouTube and type in Dr. Marianne Wolf, and there's a wonderful short, it's about 3 minutes long, but really explains this in depth, particularly for the way that we train our children to read. I got to move on. So again, this concept of paper-based reading really is extraordinarily important to the idea that we will have much higher comprehension and recall. We will actually get the message across. It will be retained longer. And if we are good designers, we will find these engagement techniques. You know, the beauty of engagement techniques is, as you can read here, when touch is a part of the marketing experience, it helps to shift the brain into a deeper level of engagement while building knowledge. The beauty of this is that loyalty doubles if we can, in fact, stimulate the recipient with several senses. You've heard me say this before. I'm holding up my phone. This only stimulates two senses, primarily ocular, visual, and if it's a video, adds audio to it. When I read ink on paper, I stimulate all four senses: visual, touch, the paper, the surface, the coatings, the stiffness, the quality of the paper, also the smell of paper, the smell of ink and paper, and the sound of paper. This actually, amazingly, this has been tested by neuroscientists, the stimulation of all four senses does in fact create a full and complete reading experience, or even customer experience, if you will. So we have much shorter attention span because we know the amount of content that is waiting for us. The other part that's very, very important is not just attention span, but we have a shrinking window of patience. The tagline that we use about visual, about AR, augmented reality, or any kind of links, it is, don't make me wait for it, don't make me work for it. If you make me work for it, I'm gone. If you make me wait for it, I'm gone. If you send me to a website instead of a microsite, I'm gone. If I have to scroll, I'm gone. Type too small, I'm gone. So a lot of decision-making that we have to do, quite frankly, from a design perspective, to make sure and ensure that we are immediately engaging in that 3 to 5 second window. Am I relevant? Am I, in fact, talking to you? Has it been personalized? Is this timely in your purchasing environment? Have I stimulated you in some way so that you remember my brand? Anyway, I'm going to keep moving. I skipped it on purpose. Direct mail continues to serve as a key drive in most omni-channel marketing plans. It's complemented well by the online efforts. While print is a higher cost, higher impact, the fact of it is that direct mail is active. I love these quick little tidbits. Again, we talked about ROI. By the way, television. ROI is, for every dollar you invest in television, you get $5 back. It's why, in fact, interestingly enough, infomercials work on television late at night. Yeah, they cost millions of dollars, but you get 5 times that back if it's well done. With direct mail, if I take advantage of all of the postal discounts, if I do everything right, and again, there are specialists who do this, both at the post office and companies who know all of the rules, all the regulations, etc., I can get as high as $12 to $13 back in an ROI. Anyway, pretty straightforward. Probably the best way for us to be able to prospect or to build a loyalty to a brand, to a company, is using magazine advertising and direct mail. The idea, I'm going to use it as a springboard to get people to a website, to get them to volunteer their email. Once I have their email, I can then, in fact, get them the links to our social media community, where at that point, then we can expand our relationship and make it far more personal. So pretty straightforward. Anytime we can, in fact, do omni-channel, it is going to impact brand awareness. It shows. I mean, not all of us can afford television, but most of us can, in fact, afford online and print simultaneously, and that's exactly what we want to do. So this is true about magazines. I know that we got a lot of people today sharing our webinar who are very much involved in magazines, some of you in catalog. We've got so much information at Sappi. Anytime you need information specific to catalog, magazine, brochures, anything else, do not hesitate to call one of your Sappi sales executives or any of the marketing executives. Will be happy to share this with you. You know, an hour is not enough time. You certainly feel that. I'm starting to talk like a ferret on espresso, as I shared with you. But we've got wonderful information from the Magazine Publishers Association, now known as the Association of Magazine Media, whom we work with very closely. These are all wonderful associations that you should be aware of and be involved in. They also have conferences where they really love to talk about their product. I love this, by the way, when you look at who spends how much money, this is, by the way, billions of dollars, that like L'Oreal spends $699 million in advertising. But look at these companies. They're food companies, they're pharma, they are, you know, financial. There's everybody in this. They believe in this medium because the magazine industry is doing well. Now, when I say that, particularly to printers, they're looking at me and they're like, are you nuts? Well, please understand, if you're not familiar with Mr. Magazine, Samir Husni, who is the chair of the School of Journalism at Ole Miss and one of the authorities in magazine, he had said in 2017, we had 587 new magazines. Now, 80% of them were much smaller in size. They weren't mass publications. They were smaller in size, less pages, because we're having challenges with the post office. Let's not, you know, kid ourselves. But what was interesting is of those magazines, 70% of the 587 were published, their publishers were in fact between the ages of 20 and 34 years old. We love magazines because they are very topical. They speak to our special interests. You know, it may be a small publication that only has 1,000, you know, mailing, or 5,000. Every magazine, if they're doing well, will grow. Now, the other part that we need to talk about, which is even more important, is all of the magazines that have been started by online companies. You know, let's put it out quite honestly, Airbnb has got a magazine. You know, Amazon's got, in fact, a catalog. All of the major companies have come to the realization, in fact, that it might be a digital first philosophy, but ultimately, once they have the following that they're looking for, once they have the market share, they are going to go into print. They are going to use direct mail very effectively. So very, very important. So I'm going to keep moving because of time. I love these statistics. The top 25 magazines have a 98% bigger total reach than the top 25 TV shows. And quite frankly, if you look at this very quickly, no matter what the area of interest is, the magazines, in fact, outnumber in terms of reach and numbers, the TV shows themselves. So 98 billion catalogs being sent out. Again, 41% of millennials read catalogs. So very, very much a part of that whole concept that catalog is still very, very much an important aspect. Interesting part, a company like LL Bean stopped sending out a catalog because they were doing incredibly well online. They were getting all these orders. So the executives decided, well, we don't need to spend money on catalog. They stopped doing their catalog. They lost $100 million in that first year without a catalog, and they immediately reinstated their catalog. So we know that, in fact, it has a huge impact. I love the statistic where it says 84% of catalog recipients prefer to shop with a catalog in hand. So we understand that connection. What we try to implore on the policy and decision makers, you may see an extraordinary amount of activity online in terms of purchasing, but quite frankly, 75% of that stimulation came from a printed catalog or a magazine advertising or a piece of direct mail. The fact is, we are a consumer culture with an expectation of immediate gratification. We want things easy, we want them convenient, we want on demand and in real time. And that can only truly happen online. But where the stimulus comes from, and that's the important part, actually helps. So again, direct mail boosts ROI by 20%. You get a huge lift in online campaigns by 62%. Response rate of direct mail now is up to 500%. So wonderful statistics that you could be using, and depending on your specific client or the specific topic, we have that information and we're more than happy to be able to share it with you. I'm going to show you a quick series of slides, and this is something I love to show, but I've got to move quickly. I have been following this a group who did a PhD treatise on where do people go when they go online, okay? So this was put out in 2008, and I love the line at the bottom. There are more than 200 well-known social network websites on the internet. Imagine 200. This is 2008. It's like my being able to tell you as a boomer, when I grew up, I only had 5 TV channels, you know, and then all of a sudden it goes digital and then we've got thousands. But what I want you to see is this, and I love this. This is called, well, you'll see this. I love this slide because it showed the names of the companies. Depending on where somebody went online, what was their activity? What were they looking for? So this is in 2008. This is 2013. All of a sudden it starts to get bigger. Plus, we have this dramatic impact of mergers and acquisitions that starts to change the topography of the internet that continues to change. This, by the way, was 2018, and now in 2020. Oh my gosh, I mean, this is just so extraordinary. So I wanted you to see this because the fact of it is, I call this the Mandela of marketing. If you have not seen this before, you can see the website down at the bottom, conversationprism.com. This is where your customers are. When your customers or your associates or anyone go online, whether it's travel or hospitality or expert Q&A, or it's discussions and forums or social curation, this is where they go. And if they go for that, these are the companies that are supporting them. Absolutely superb. I want you to see this because this is a great chart where I share that I kept hearing these amazing numbers about this, perfect example, Facebook, 1.5 billion members, YouTube, 1.2 billion members. And I thought, well, those are huge numbers, but it doesn't tell me who they are. And we were writing a presentation on multi-generational marketing. And this took a lot of time to find this chart. I was digging and digging and digging, and I finally found it. What I love so much about this chart is if you look on the left-hand side, those are the generations, Boomer, Gen X, the 2 millennials, Millennial A, the children of Boomers, Millennial B, the children of Gen Xers, very different worldviews that they pass on to their children, and finally Gen Z. The dark blue is Facebook, and look at the Boomers, 76% of their social media use is on Facebook, and look down and follow it. By the time you get to Gen Z, it's only 11%. It's minuscule. But what I want you to notice is the bright red, and that's YouTube. Not that big of a usage with Boomers, a little bigger, but look at by the time you get down to the younger millennials and certainly by Gen Z, 31%. If you look at Instagram, 24%. Please understand sincerely that within the next 2 to 3 years, YouTube will be the largest social media platform. It will be larger than Facebook. We understand Facebook is having a lot of political issues and privacy issues, but the point is usage is that the younger generation really does enjoy and really does care. And now what's so very important is the concept that when you're looking at, and I do this a lot when we're in large audiences, is I will ask, how many of you have made a purchase on Instagram or Snapchat? And all of the younger hands go up because now social media platforms are linked to storefronts. You're following somebody on Instagram, you really love their products, and you want to buy it, now you can. So this really changes the concept. You've heard me talk about this before, relevance, timing, and frequency. What is frequency? Well, interestingly enough, statistics and research has shown if you want to stay top of mind, really you should be sending something out about every 4 to 6 weeks. Now, here's the interesting thing. The easiest way of staying in front of people is with postcards. Everybody reads postcards. You know, in fact, they are the most read of all direct mail, and it continues to grow. Well, please, what you have to understand is this is critical. It's a critical time. I'm sharing this quick with you. This came from another of my presentations, but it says it perfectly, particularly in these times of COVID-19 and quarantine. In a recession, the worst thing that you can do is hide, to cut off communications with customers. Customers are often skeptical, but they tend to be even more so during a recession. Fear creates focus. They wonder, how are you doing? And they ask themselves, should I buy that product when its supplier might be out of business in 6 months? Now is the time to increase communication and restore customers' confidence, not only in the product or service that you're selling, but also the company behind those products. You have a captive audience. Let them know that you're still in business and doing business, that you still value them as customers. And please make sure and talk to, in fact, your Millcraft rep or your Sappi rep, because there are, in fact, very important manufacturing guidelines when you buy the paper. You'll notice down at the bottom, when we make paper to basis weight, we manufacture that paper plus or minus 5% of the basis weight. This does not meet postal regulations. When we make it to caliper, to actual thickness, it's measured with a micrometer to the thousandth of an inch. When we talk about 7 point or 9 point, we're really talking about 7 1,000th of an inch or 9 1,000th of an inch. And what you'll notice at the bottom is in manufacturing, we will go over, but they're guaranteed no underage, because if you go under, the post office can and will reject your drop. So please, again, increase exposure actually increases intent to purchase the brand. Colored envelopes make a huge difference. We love seeing this. So you have to have that personal contact. It has to feel personal. 95% of all decisions are based on emotion. The written word is the most active driver. These are, well, let me go back a second. These are the most powerful words: you, new, save, discovery, money, free, easy, darn it, sorry. Free, easy, love, safety, guarantee, health, results, and proven. And there was this amazing study done about the copy drivers. And what they found out is there's basically just 7 emotions. Any advertising, any marketing, any merchandising is based on fear, greed, guilt, anger, exclusivity, salvation, and flattery. By the way, this is all in the book, that if you get a copy, it's very, very well it is very, very well explained. Touch is a part of the marketing experience. It helps shift the brain into a deeper level of engagement while building knowledge. We talked about that. Marketing using special finishing effects, foil stamping, die cutting, soft touch, grit, anything like that will increase sales by 18%. It's a huge number. And there are, in fact, any number of wonderful guides that you can get that will show you how to be able to do it. I love this statistic. It is estimated that only 30% of offset printed color pages and less than 3% of total production of colored digital printed pages have some type of enhancement beyond CMYK process color. What's that saying, in fact, is that 70% of offset does not use special effects, and 97% of variable data printing does not use special effects. This gives us an extraordinary opportunity to engage our customers and be unique. You'll notice it says it's found that print buyers are willing to pay a premium of 24% to 89% for digital enhancements and color. Wonderful opportunity. Anyway, we talked about this.